when the counting answered back. I was 9 when my mother taught me the trick. If anything frightens you, dear, count to 10. Numbers are patient. Fear is not. I have remembered that line all my life, but I remember last night even more. The house was silent in the way an old house is rarely silent. Pipes did not mutter. The fridge did not cough. Floorboards kept whatever secrets they normally share in the dark. That hush felt earned, like a room after a funeral. I lay in bed and tried to read, then gave up and switched off the lamp. My own breathing sounded overbright. I shut my eyes and, with an almost embarrassed smile, whispered the old promise. 1, 2. The counting was meant to tame a pulse that had started to gallop for no reason I could name. I reached 3 before I heard it. A second voice, no louder than mine, coming from the hallway outside my bedroom door. It spoke the next number. 4. Calm, level, helpful. A warning delivered with courtesy. My bed is against the wall opposite the door. I could see the corridor, moonlit, empty. I still saw nothing. Even so, I knew I was not alone. The notion was not frightening at first. It was oddly companionable. Someone, something, had decided to reassure me with mathematics. I answered. 5. A small attempt at politeness. Immediately the other voice said, 6. The tone matched mine exactly, as if an echo had learned to run ahead of its source. The nail-head of true dread tapped the base of my spine. Mother never told me what to do when the numbers spoke back. I sat upright. The quilt slipped, exposing my legs to air so cold it felt damp. Logic fluttered in like a moth. Perhaps a sibling was teasing me. Yet my brother lives 2 towns away, my sister 4 states. Guests? None. Pets? Never owned any that could speak. The corridor lengthened in the dark. A familiar doorway now seemed the mouth of a tunnel that might never end. I placed 1 foot on the floorboards. They accepted my weight without a squeak, as though they too wished to listen. 7. It was my turn. The words staggered out, thin and pale. I forced a swallow. The opposite voice delivered. 8. Still warm. Still perfectly paced. No threat, only certainty. A child counts forward by habit. An adult can choose not to. I remained silent, yet the game went on. 9. The unseen partner declared. A pause, polite, waiting for me to finish. I could feel the expectation, ripe as thunder. I tried to think of light. I reached for the lamp switch and missed. My hand trembled. I heard the shift of cloth behind the door frame, the barest sigh one hears when someone rises from a chair. The pause ended. 10. It said it for me. Nothing moved after that. The corridor held its breath, and I held mine. Somehow those 2 halves of absence fitted together like puzzle pieces. Wind pushed a branch against the gutter outside. The scrapes sounded relieved, grateful for even that small chaos. My courage found a ragged edge to grip. I switched on the lamp. Dull amber filled the room, showing only furniture, dust, and a shoe that had toppled sideways. The corridor was empty, though the air there looked thicker, as if it had been folded and hurriedly smoothed. I listened for retreating footsteps. None. Perhaps imagination likes a stage and applause. Perhaps I had applauded too early. I rose, wrapped the quilt around my shoulders, and stepped into the hall. Cold floor, cold paint, ordinary pictures on the wall. I whispered a dare. Is anyone there? The house answered with a hush, no more. I began to doubt my ears. People do strange things to themselves in the small hours. Then I saw the rug at the far end of the corridor shift, almost unnoticeably, as if someone had stood on its edge. The hallway is 7 paces long. I took one measured step forward. 1, I said louder than before. Again, no reply. The rug lay still. I took the second step, another. 2. Still nothing. Half of me relaxed. The other half hated the relief because it felt borrowed and temporary, like a coat in rain that will soon soak through. On the third step my heel brushed something colder than the floor. I looked down. No object, no shadow, just floorboards. Yet the chill lingered like a hand pressed flat upon my skin. A war began inside me. Turn around, crawl back into bed, or press on and learn what stood at the end of the corridor. My mother believed knowledge dispels fear. She was wrong. Some things we discover only to wish we had not. I went on counting. 3, 4, 5. The silence broke. It did not crumble or crack. It opened, widening behind my words. And in that widening I started to understand that the voice outside the door had never truly left. It had stepped back, let me walk, and waited. At the 6th step I almost stopped breathing. The air in front of me quivered. It looked like heat above asphalt, but cold poured off it. My lips nearly stuck to my teeth as I whispered. 6. Movement, at last. A ripple, nothing more, and the sound of a breath being drawn through wet leaves. I managed. 7. No reply. The corridor seemed to lean. I spoke. 8. And the lights went out. A second of eternal length passed, then the lamplight snapped on behind me by itself. My room glowed while the hallway stayed dark. The meaning was clear. I was being invited to retreat. I did not. I said, 9, and the rug shifted again. A corner lifted, as though a foot beneath it wanted freedom. I heard claws strain and a joint pop. Something straightened to its full height. I want to describe what I saw when I forced the final number out of my throat, but I cannot be sure eyes were involved. What I felt was larger than vision. 10. The word struck whatever lurked there as a stone strikes water. The floor sagged. My ears filled with pressure, as if the house were descending fast. I backed away, never turning, never blinking, until my calves touched the bed. That is how the chapter ends for now. I do not know what the next page will hold. I only know the counting has not finished. It has merely paused to smile. Night returned too fast, the way a hand snaps back after testing a flame. All day I resisted sleep. Coffee, cold showers, walks in bright streets. None of it kept the shadows from sliding closer once evening tipped over the roof. I decided to pretend bravery. Pretending often fools everything except mirrors. I left every downstairs light burning and climbed the steps as if late for an appointment I could not cancel. Behind me the bulbs buzzed like insects trapped in honey. At the top landing I paused. Yesterday's corridor looked smaller, embarrassed by daylight memories. Yet I sensed the echo of the counting, a faint arithmetic taste in the air. I ignored it. People who speak of hauntings rarely mention the stubbornness of laundry, or the insistence of bills. Practical tasks kept grabbing my sleeve. They saved me from staring too long at a blank space that felt anything but blank. I stripped the bed, washed sheets stained by night's sweat, fitted new linen, smoothed pillows. All neat. Human order stood up straight, whispered that monsters dislike tidy rooms. I almost believed it. Then I switched off the hall light. A subtle weight settled on my shoulders, heavier than any quilt. My skin remembered the chill from under the rug. I reminded myself that even ice obeys laws. Doors are wood. Wood stays wood. Whatever lived between numbers surely could not pass through oak. I walked to the bed, sat, removed slippers, and banned further thought. I lay back and stared at the ceiling. The plaster up there wears hairline cracks that resemble rivers on a blurred map. I traced them with my eyes until focus dissolved. At last breath slowed. Sleep crept near, shivering like a stray invited in but uncertain of welcome. Crack. A tiny, crisp sound by my right ear. My eyes flew open. Someone had stepped on grit. The carpet there is spotless. Still I heard another grain crunch, deliberate, patient. I did not turn my head. A person does not lift a curtain if certain tide waits beyond. Instead I spoke to the ceiling. Not tonight. The presence answered with silence thick enough to taste. It tasted of pennies and snow. I reached out, found the lamp switch, and pressed. No light came. Bulb or wiring no longer agreed to serve. Refusal is contagious. I refused panic, though it knocked. Minutes passed in stale darkness. The mattress dipped, slow, polite, an invitation to scoot aside. I felt the give of springs under a weight that was not mine. We lay together. 2 sets of lungs worked, mine rapid, the other steady, almost restful. Warmth collected on my left arm where nothing touched yet something pressed. I tried to reclaim the old ritual. 1, I whispered. The syllable fluttered like a bird hitting glass. A heartbeat later the unknown voice said, 2 inches from my cheek. My ribs cramped around loneliness. The simplest wish in the world is to feel another heartbeat, and trust it belongs to a friend. I had half that wish. Half is worse than none. A memory of childhood surfaced. Hiding beneath blankets, believing cloth could repel ghosts. I slid the sheet over my head. Darkness within darkness. The bedmate exhaled approval, humored by superstition. Under the sheet I opened my mouth to scream but found a different sound. 3. Not a cry for help, only the next step in a doomed parade. 4. It replied. The barrier of cotton grew colder. Threads stiffened, turned to frost. My teeth rattled. I might have prayed if I remembered how, yet prayers involve hope, and hope had walked out hours earlier. The sheet tightened across my face, drawn by invisible hands. I could breathe, barely, through fabric that now smelled of cellar earth. I wondered if my visitor meant to smother me or simply listen while I suffocated myself with fear. I thought of my mother. She taught numbers, not courage. I remembered her voice. It had always been tired yet kind, like a gardener who apologizes to flowers before pruning them. She would want her son to fight. I clenched fists, kicked. The mattress pitched, but the weight near my ribs did not slid. It anchored itself. The counting went on. 5, I gasped. Return answer. 6, calm as rain on a roof. I drew knees to chest and rolled toward the nightstand, hoping momentum would dump the intruder on the floor. The bed frame groaned, yet only I moved. Springs sang under a weight that floated just above them, pressing down without sharing friction. I hit the floor. Carpet burned my elbow. The sheet fell away. At once I looked back. Nothing. Not on the mattress, not in the corner, not near the closet. But the indentation remained, deep as if a statue of iron reclined there. 7, I said before I knew I was speaking. The hollow in the bed thickened, darkening the white sheet, shadow pooling in cotton valleys. Then came 8. The voice now seemed to rise from the mattress itself, as if coils and stuffing had grown a throat. I crawled backward to the wall. Plaster cooled my spine. I found a small strength in that chill. At least the wall was honest about being stone. 9, my whisper. 10, its reply. The indentation vanished as though the frame sighed and stood straight. All quiet. A lamp across the street flickered through blinds, drawing stripes on the ceiling. The cracks looked wider, though they had not changed. I waited for dawn, and dawn obliged, but late. When the first robin sang, I rose on legs that might have belonged to an older stranger. I stripped the bed again. Beneath the sheet, written in powdery gray on the mattress, I found 2 words. My turn. The letters were shaped by absence, dust pushed aside by fingers made of air. I burned the sheet in a metal bin outside. Ash spiraled. I watched until the last ember winked. I have not replaced the linen. Bare springs feel less welcoming. Tonight I may try the sofa. Numbers travel, of course, yet couches do not form corridors, and I am tired of hallways. Still, what truly unsettles me is simple. The visitor never insisted on taking turns before. It waited behind 10. Now it wants to begin at 1. Which means the next chapter may last much longer than a count to 10. Morning gave me errands, and I obeyed. Banks, post office, grocery store. Anything that let me stand among talk, traffic, and the forgiving glare of sun on windshields. I reached for normal life like a man lost at sea reaching for driftwood. Afternoon clouds gathered, slow and heavy as judges. By 4 the sky looked bruised. I hurried home yet slowed at the gate. The house appeared thinner, walls drawing in, windows watching. Ridiculous image, but it held me. Inside, silence greeted with newfound confidence. Even the refrigerator hum had mellowed, as though each appliance understood the new landlord. I decided to face the unknown in plain sight. No rooms, no sheets. I carried a folding chair to the center of the living room and placed a large antique mirror there. The glass had cracked years ago, so I had removed the shards, leaving an empty wooden frame. Its surface now revealed only wallpaper. A doorway without door. I sat. Lamps remained on. The room glowed. I spoke to the frame. Here I am. My voice did not shake. That alone felt like victory. Minutes stretched. Wood creaked somewhere overhead. I pictured Wade pacing in the attic, tracing old beams with barefoot patience. I unfolded a memory of childhood games. Children dare each other to chant names into mirrors. Adults scoff, yet yesterday I heard numbers talk. Scoffing felt expensive. I leaned forward. 1, I said. The frame stood blank. I listened. No echo. Perhaps the thing lacked curiosity for reflections without glass. I swallowed and decided to escalate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Silence, but thicker. Air pressed my ears like altitude change. Lamps dimmed a shade, then brightened. The empty frame began to quiver. Wood groaned not from stress but from trying to remember being a tree. A ripple of dark appeared inside the rectangle, not glass, not wall. Texture of mist viewed through cloth. I rose. My chair screeched back. The ripple stabilized. Depth announced itself. I could feel draw, faint, the way a deep well summons a pebble. I understand curiosity is lethal to cats, yet humans are worse. I stepped closer. Cold poured from the frame, though no wind stirred. Then I heard it. A breathy little. 1. It did not wait for me. 2, 3, 4. Spoken in a hush that sounded eager. The numbers came quicker, yet remained clear. At 7, I reached the frame. My hand lifted uninvited. Knuckles neared the ripple. The surface looked liquid, smelled of stone cellars. The unseen voice reached. 9. Pause. Invitation. I whispered. 10. A shape swelled inside the opening, taller than me, genderless, formed of thin smoke laced with frost. Where a face might be there was only suggestion, like breath on cold glass. It lifted an arm, long, with joints slightly wrong. The hand ended before fingers began. Gaps instead of digits, emptiness shaped like a grasp. It touched the threshold, stopped, and waited. I knew what it wanted. permission. I considered retreat. I thought of locking doors no lock could hold. I imagined praying. None of that felt honest. Instead, I chose negotiation. "What do you count for?" I asked. Shape tilted its head as if tasting the words. The voice came from everywhere, softer than soft. "To keep order." "Whose order?" "Ours." No anger, just fact. "I am not part of your order," I said. "You are counted all the same." The honesty chilled me more than any threat. My breath smoked though the room remained above 20 degrees. I took one step back. The shape did not advance. It waited, courteous, convinced of eventual triumph. "This is my house," I said. "Soon." That single word bent the air. A picture fell from the opposite wall, frame cracking on impact though glass did not break. The sound felt ceremonial. I realized bargaining with arithmetic is impossible. Numbers cannot compromise. They simply include you or they do not. Inclusion may kill as neatly as exclusion. Both are final. "I won't help you," I said. "You are helping," it replied and began to fade, satisfied, like a banker closing a ledger. When the ripple cleared, the ordinary wall showed again. Lamps brightened to full. Clock ticks resumed. But the air kept the chill of deep water. I walked the house, turning mirrors to face the wall. Vanity makes good doors for bad things. I could not risk another open frame. Still, glass or no glass, surfaces remember. That night I wrapped the mirror in canvas, lashed it with tape, and stored it in the shed behind the garden. I thought distance might matter. I have been wrong before. Moonlight crawled across the lawn. It paused at the shed, then slipped beneath the door as though learning the shape of a lock. I stood at the window counting seconds until the sky began to pale. As first light arrived, a small series of taps sounded from the shed. Measured, polite, 10 in total. Order, it seems, keeps its own schedule. I skipped sleep. Coffee tasted of panic by dawn. My hands quivered, but I held tools. Hammer, chisel, plaster, boards. If the house wanted corridors, I would shorten them. If it wanted mirrors, I would blind them. I was done letting shapes dictate terms. My first target was the wall between my bedroom and the corridor. I planned to carve a small window so the hallway could no longer hide. Transparency felt like armor. I marked lines with a pencil, tapped the chisel, and plaster flaked tidy as pastry. Behind it, void. No studs, no insulation. Only darkness, cold and deep. I leaned in with a flashlight. The beam reached nothing. Light should bounce. It vanished like a coin dropped in deep water. Air within that gap smelled iced, ancient, maybe infinite. I pulled back. The hole breathed. A slow outward flow chilled my face. Outside birds sang, but their music died at the edge of that breath. I heard counting. Not aloud. Inside my skull, behind my eyes. Numbers pulsed with my heartbeat. 1, 2, 3. Louder. I pressed palms to ears. Sound remained internal. I swung the hammer. Wood splintered, plaster cracked. The hole widened. I meant to expose, yet instead I gave it a larger mouth. Something slid close to the opening. I sensed weight more than shape, like a whale drifting beneath a rowboat. The house groaned as pressure shifted. I stepped back. Tools dropped. "Stop," I said, silly word against mathematics. Counting quickened. 4, 5, 6, 7. I stumbled into the hall. Shadows lengthened against logic. Wall lamps dimmed as though current bled elsewhere. I realized the voice inside me was not mine. It counted with delight, approaching 10. I needed to interrupt the sequence. My mind raced, grabbing at childhood rhymes, foreign alphabets, random phone numbers. None fit. The drumbeat count pressed on 8, 9. I shouted, 11. The hall shook. A picture fell again, glass cracking this time. Counting paused. The presence seemed confused, childhood rule broken. I pressed advantage and reeled off prime numbers. 13, 17, 19, 23. Each word tasted electric. Floorboards vibrated. Behind me I heard the breach shriek like wind forced through wire. I hurled the hammer into the hole. Metal rang against nothing, then silence swallowed it. The internal count restarted, slower now, cautious. 1. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed salt, poured a line across the corridor entrance. Folklore is desperate creativity. I had nothing else. The air beyond the salt thickened, forming swirls. A shape tried to congeal. Features flickered then erased. It disliked asymmetry perhaps. 2. I emptied flour, sugar, coffee grounds, forming messy borders. Chaos against order. The numbers stalled. 3 never came. I fell to my knees, head throbbing. For a minute nothing existed but panting lungs and spilled groceries. Then I heard a whisper, not a count, but a promise. We have time. The wall breach behind me sealed itself without a sound. Fresh plaster, smooth as though painted hours earlier. Hammer gone, opening erased, reality edited. Salt line remained dull, harmless. Yet I felt a scar inside the house, invisible, permanent. Evening arrived early, clouds like bruises. I sat in the living room nursing tea that tasted of chalk. Lamps flickered but held. At 6:20 the phone rang. I let it ring. Machines already spoke too much. When the first star appeared, power failed. Lamps died, fridge sighed off, heater quieted. Through windows the street remained lit. Only my house dimmed. From upstairs came a faint click. A switch thrown by someone not there. Another click, and another, like fingers testing every light. After the 10th click, quiet. Footsteps descended slow, deliberate. 10 stairs. They stopped at the bottom. I could not see, yet I knew someone waited. Rain began. Outside thunder rolled, gentle but final. The voice spoke from the dark hall. The world ends neatly. We practice here. I gripped the mug with both hands. Warmth bled away. I had no answer. The footsteps retreated, but only 3 steps. They paused, patient, perhaps counting grains of dust in a beam of moonlight now sliding through a cloud break. I whispered a single word. Why? The reply came at once, soft, certain. Because someone always counts. No other sound followed. Power returned at midnight. Lights flared, radio blurted static, kettle clicked, then silence settled like snow. I did not sleep. I listened to rain tapping code on the roof. 20 beats, pause, 10 beats, pause. The pattern kept perfect time. Storms usually exhaust themselves. This one paced all night, then lounged at dawn, unwilling to leave. Clouds sat heavy, gravid with a second deluge. The world felt stalled, like a breath held too long. I made a choice. Flight. House, town, maybe continent. A suitcase took clothes in a hurry. Essentials only, though meaning of essential kept shrinking. Passport, cards, phone, keys to a place I would not re-enter. Still, I hesitated at the threshold. Leaving felt like turning back on someone frail, though the house had never been frail. I looked down the corridor one last time. It looked back. Light at the far end bent, warped, as if heat shimmered in winter air. A murmur drifted, either voice nor wind, but the friction of thoughts passing each other in a tight hall. My heart sped. I counted heartbeats wrong on purpose. 5, 7, 11, 13. The shimmer rippled. It disliked disorders but remained. I stepped outside. Rain struck like thrown pins. I pulled the door shut. The latch did not catch. Wood swelled. Twice more I slammed before it bit. The click sounded oddly final. Keys in hand, I walked to the car. Wipers flailed, engine churned, then caught. I backed from the drive. At the curb I glanced at the upstairs window. Curtain moved. No one should be there. Yet a shadow leaned, narrow as a coat rack, waving with the indolence of royalty. I looked away. First gear, second, then the engine coughed. Dashboard lights danced, radio popped, speakers emitted a faint count. 1, 2, 3. I punched power, but the radio off switch ignored me. Counts climbed. 4, 5, 6. I slapped the wheel. Car lurched, stalled, died. Rain hammered the roof. Wipers froze mid-swipe. Inside the cabin temperature dropped breath cold. Condensation filmed glass. On the windshield a line appeared, not written but cleared, wiped by an unseen finger. The word read stay. I opened the door and stumbled into rain. Street empty. Houses glowed cheerful, unaware. My house sat mute. I left the car door gaping, sprinted back inside, soaked, furious. "What do you want?" I bellowed into the hall. The corridor lights flicked on one by one, sequential, like runway lamps. At the far end the rug lifted, folded aside. Floorboards yawned open to reveal stairs that never existed. Down they went, cut from black stone, slick with age. Air rose, smelling of cold libraries and shut basements. A whisper drifted up. 10. I should have run. Instead I followed. Rain's sound faded behind the closing door. Steps counted themselves under my feet. 1 down, 2 down, 3. No choice. Numbers own gravity. After the 10th step a landing waited. A door of silver wood stood ajar. Through the crack I saw sky. Stars wheeled too fast, spins of bright dust, galaxies tumbling like coins. The space beyond was not outer space. It was an inner sky, folded tight, waiting to open wider. I heard heartbeats, thousands in measured rows. Each pulse held to schedule. Some slowed, some quickened, but all obeyed. Somewhere among them I recognized my own, clicking like a small clock. The whisper beside me said, "Everything belongs somewhere." I looked down at my hands. They shone faint, traced by lines of slow fire. Countless digits, not fingers but numbers, slithered under the skin, ordering tissue, blood, thought. I pressed palms together, tried to crush the glow. It pulsed brighter. I wondered if anyone could refuse being counted, or if refusal itself is merely another line in the tally. The silver door swung wider. Wind of no temperature brushed my face. Stars behind the door shifted, aligning into a curve of 10. The shape felt inevitable, even merciful. I shook my head. "Not yet." My voice sounded smaller than a pen scratch. The presence answered, gentle. "Already." Behind me the staircase had vanished. Corridor gone. House gone. Only the landing and the door remained, floating in a night that did not care for walls. Pulse after pulse rang like drops in a well. 10 beats, pause, 10, pause. The rhythm promised eternity dressed as comfort. I stepped back, yet nothing retreated with me. Space stretched so my foot met no floor. Balance fled. I fell upward, or sideways, impossible to know. Stars swirled, chanting the row of 10, on loop. I closed my eyes and counted. 1 breath, 2, 3, 4. No reply. I opened eyes. Numbers had paused, curious. I whispered, 11. The stars trembled. A thread of dark split their curve. I continued. 13. 17. 19. 23. Primes, asymmetry, defiance. The sky shuddered like wet cloth snapped hard. A crack boomed. Light peeled back. Silence screamed. I landed on hallway carpet. Breath ragged, lungs on fire. Upstairs windows shook. Rain stopped, abruptly, absurdly. The house held its shape. Lights burned steady. I rose. Somewhere distant, thunder counted to 10, endless patience contained in cloud. But within these walls the numbers had stumbled. How long the victory would last I could not guess. Order never quits. It only recalculates. I wiped rain from my hair, locked the door, and spoke a vow to any corner listening. I will never count to 10 again. The corners considered, quiet but attentive. Then, softly, politely, they began to count backward. 10. 9. 8. I smiled, not brave, merely tired. Good. Backward felt like retreat. Retreat is still movement. Movement breeds error. Error is hope. The counting continued, descending, sounding almost sleepy. I headed to the kitchen, picked up the kettle, and waited for the voice to reach 0. When it did, the world might wink out. Or start over. The coffins whisper. The house was too quiet. I noticed it the moment I stepped inside, my boots scuffing the worn hardwood. The air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. I'd only been gone a week, visiting my sister in Portland, but something about the place seemed different. Wrong, even. My name is Elise, and I'd lived in this old Victorian for 3 years, renting it cheap because of its quirks. Creaky floors. Drafty windows. A basement I rarely visited. But that silence, it unnerved me. I dropped my suitcase by the door. The ticking of the kitchen clock was faint, like it was struggling to keep up. I flicked on the living room light. Nothing seemed out of place. The same faded couch, the same stack of books on the coffee table. Yet my skin prickled. I told myself it was jet lag. Or maybe the house was just cold. October in Maine could do that to old bones like these. The basement door was in the kitchen, tucked beside the pantry. I'd always avoided it. The stairs were steep, the light bulb dim, and the smell, musty, like damp earth, made my nose wrinkle. But I needed to check the furnace. The house was freezing, and my landlord had texted me to reset the pilot light if it went out. I grabbed a flashlight from the drawer, its beam weak but better than nothing. The door creaked when I opened it. A rush of cold air hit my face, carrying that earthy smell. I hesitated. Something in my gut told me to stay upstairs, to call the landlord instead. But I was tired, stubborn, and didn't want to deal with his grumbling. I flicked the basement switch. The bulb buzzed, casting a sickly yellow glow over the wooden stairs. They groaned under my weight. The basement was a maze of shadows. Boxes lined the walls, some mine, some left by previous tenants. The furnace hulked in the corner, its pipes snaking across the ceiling. I aimed my flashlight at it, ready to get this over with. But then I saw it. In the far corner, half hidden by a stack of crates, was a shape that didn't belong. Long, rectangular. Dark. My breath caught. I swung the flashlight beam over. It was a coffin. Black wood, polished to a dull sheen, with brass handles glinting faintly. My heart thudded. Who puts a coffin in a basement? I took a step closer, then stopped. The air felt thicker here, like it was pressing against my chest. I told myself it was probably empty. A leftover from some eccentric tenant. Or maybe a prop. People did weird things. But I couldn't look away. The coffin seemed to pull at me, like it wanted me to come closer. I swallowed hard. My flashlight beam trembled. There was something carved on the lid. Letters, maybe? I edged forward, my boots scraping the concrete floor. The light caught the carving, and my stomach dropped. It was my name. Elise Harper. Etched deep into the wood, the letters sharp and precise. I froze. My pulse roared in my ears. This wasn't a prank. No one knew I was back yet. Not my sister, not my friends, not even my landlord. I backed away, my flashlight beam jerking wildly. The basement seemed to close in, the shadows shifting like they were alive. I stumbled toward the stairs. My foot caught on a crate, and I nearly fell. The flashlight slipped from my hand, clattering to the floor. Its beam spun, lighting up the coffin for a split second. I swear I saw the lid move. Just a fraction. Like it was breathing. I didn't wait to find out. I scrambled up the stairs, my hands clawing at the railing. The basement door slammed behind me. I locked it, my fingers shaking so badly I dropped the key twice. The kitchen clock ticked on, oblivious. I grabbed my phone, ready to call someone, anyone, but the screen was black. Dead, despite being fully charged an hour ago. The house was still quiet. Too quiet. But now I heard something else. Faint, like a whisper. It came from behind the basement door. My name, over and over. Elise. 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 I backed away, my heart hammering. The whisper grew louder, sharper, like it was carving itself into my skull. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch, clutching a kitchen knife, staring at the basement door. The whisper never stopped. It followed me, even when I covered my ears. By morning I was shaking. I told myself I'd imagined it. Basements were creepy. Old houses played tricks. But I couldn't shake the image of that coffin. My name on it. Waiting. I had to go back down. I had to know what it was. Why it was there. And why it wanted me. Morning didn't help. The house felt no safer in daylight. Gray clouds pressed against the windows, muting the sun. I hadn't slept. My eyes burned, and my hands still shook from gripping the knife all night. The basement door stayed locked, but the whisper lingered. Elise. Elise. Faint now, like a distant radio, but it was there. I couldn't pretend it wasn't. I made coffee, hoping it would steady me. The kitchen smelled of stale grounds and fear. My phone was still dead, no matter how long I charged it. I needed answers. The coffin, my name on it, wasn't some trick of the light. I had to face it. Ignoring it felt worse, like letting something grow in the dark. I found a spare flashlight in the hall closet. Its beam was stronger, cutting through the gloom. I stood by the basement door, key in hand. My heart raced, but I was done running. I unlocked the door. The creak was louder this time, like a warning. The musty smell hit me again, stronger, like the earth itself was exhaling. The stairs groaned under my boots. The basement light flickered, casting jagged shadows. The coffin was still there, exactly where I'd left it. Black wood brass handles, my name carved on the lid. Elise Harper. I aimed the flashlight at it. The letters seemed deeper now, like they'd been clawed into the wood overnight. I circled the coffin, keeping my distance. It was heavy, solid, not some cheap prop. The air around it felt wrong, too cold, too still. I noticed something new. The floor beneath it was scuffed, like it had been dragged into place recently. My landlord never mentioned a coffin. Neither had the previous tenants I'd met. This wasn't here when I moved in. I crouched, shining the light along the edges. There were scratches on the sides, faint but deliberate. Not random. They looked like tally marks. Dozens of them, etched into the wood. My stomach twisted. I counted 27 before I stopped. What were they counting? Days? People? I stood, my legs unsteady. The whisper came again. Elise. Clearer now, like it was inside the coffin. I backed away, my flashlight beam shaking. The lid hadn't moved, but I couldn't shake the feeling it might. I told myself to stay calm. There had to be an explanation. Maybe the house had a history. Old Victorians often did. I scanned the basement for clues. The boxes were mostly junk, old clothes, books, a broken lamp. But one crate, near the coffin, caught my eye. It was newer, the wood less dusty. I pried it open with a crowbar I found nearby. Inside were papers. Yellowed, brittle, tied with twine. My hands shook as I untied them. The papers were letters. Handwritten, dated decades ago. The earliest was from 1893. They mentioned the house, the basement, and something called the vessel. I skimmed one, my eyes catching phrases like, "It must be fed," and "the name binds it." My name wasn't mentioned, but the word vessel made my skin crawl. Was the coffin the vessel? One letter was different. It was a list. Names, written in faded ink. Men, women, some with dates beside them. The last name was scratched out, unreadable, dated 2024. My breath hitched. That was last year. I dropped the papers, my flashlight beam darting to the coffin. The whisper grew louder. Elise. Elise. I wanted to run, but my feet felt rooted. The air pulsed like a heartbeat. The coffin's lid shifted. Just an inch, but I saw it. Dust drifted from the gap. Something moved inside, slow, deliberate, like it was waking up. I screamed, stumbling backward. The flashlight fell, its beams spinning across the floor. I scrambled for the stairs. The whisper chased me, sharp and insistent. Elise. I tripped, my knees slamming into a step. Pain shot through me, but I didn't stop. I reached the kitchen, slammed the door, and locked it. My chest heaved. The whisper faded, but the house felt alive now, watching me. I grabbed my coat and keys. I needed to leave, to find help. But as I reached the front door, I froze. The doorknob wouldn't turn. The windows wouldn't open. The house didn't want me to go. I pounded on the door, shouting, but the street outside was empty. My phone was still dead. I was trapped. The whisper started again. Faint, from the basement. But now it wasn't alone. Other voices joined it, soft and overlapping. They called my name, like a chorus. I slid to the floor, my back against the door. The coffin wasn't empty. And it wasn't done with me. The front door wouldn't budge. I twisted the knob until my hand ached, but it was like the house had sealed itself shut. The windows were no better, locked tight, the glass cold under my palms. I hammered on them, yelling for anyone passing by. The street was quiet. No cars, no neighbors, just gray clouds swallowing the sky. My phone stayed dead, a useless brick in my pocket. The whisper drifted up from the basement. Elise. Soft, almost gentle, but it made my skin crawl. I paced the living room, my boots thumping the floor. The house felt smaller now, the walls too close. The kitchen clock ticked, but the hands hadn't moved since morning. 10:32, frozen. I tried the landline, an old rotary phone in the hall. No dial tone. Just a faint hum, like someone listening on the other end. I hung up fast. I needed a plan. The coffin was real. The voices were real. The papers in the basement, those names, the talk of a vessel, were real too. I couldn't ignore them. But I wasn't going back down there. Not yet. I decided to search the house. Maybe there was something upstairs, in the attic or the spare room, that could explain this. Old houses held secrets. I just didn't expect them to hold mine. The stairs to the second floor creaked, each step louder than the last. The hallway was dim, the light bulbs weak. My bedroom door was ajar. I didn't remember leaving it open. I pushed it wider, my heart pounding. Everything looked normal. Bed unmade, clothes on the chair, books on the nightstand. But the air felt wrong, heavy, like someone had just left. I checked the closet, the dresser under the bed. Nothing. The spare room was next, a small space with a single window. It was empty except for a wardrobe I'd never opened. The landlord said it was stuck, so I'd left it alone. Now I tugged at the doors. They didn't budge. I leaned closer, listening. A faint sound came from inside. Scratching, like nails on wood. I stepped back, my breath shallow. The attic was my last hope. The pull-down ladder squeaked as I lowered it. Dust drifted down, catching in my throat. I climbed, my flashlight beam cutting through the dark. The attic was cramped, the ceiling low. Boxes and trunks lined the walls, covered in cobwebs. I moved carefully, avoiding nails jutting from the beams. One trunk stood out. It was small, iron-bound, with a padlock that looked new. I knelt beside it, my flashlight steady. The lock was cold, the metal biting my fingers. I didn't have a key, but the hasp was loose, rusted at the edges. I pried it open with a screwdriver from a nearby toolbox. The lid creaked as I lifted it. Inside was a book. Leather-bound, the cover cracked and stained. No title, just a symbol etched into it, a circle with lines radiating like spokes. I opened it, my hands trembling. The pages were handwritten, the ink faded but legible. It was a journal, dated 1876. The writer, someone named Amos, described the house. He called it a trap for the unwary. My stomach churned as I read. He wrote about the coffin, the vessel, and a ritual to bind the named. The names were the key. Once carved, they tied you to it. I flipped to the last page. My name was there. Elise Harper, in fresh ink, dated yesterday. I dropped the book, my flashlight clattering. The whisper came again, louder, from below. Elise. Not from the basement this time. From the hallway. I grabbed the journal and scrambled down the ladder, my pulse racing. The hallway was empty, but the wardrobe in the spare room was open now. Just a crack, but I hadn't left it that way. I approached, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. The scratching was louder, rhythmic. I yanked the door open. Nothing. Just dusty shelves and a mirror on the back wall. My reflection stared back, pale and wide-eyed. But something was off. My reflection's lips moved, whispering my name. I didn't. I slammed the wardrobe shut, backing away. The journal slipped from my hand, pages fluttering. The house groaned, like it was settling, or laughing. The whisper grew into a chorus, voices overlapping. Elise. Elise. They came from everywhere now, walls, floor, ceiling. I ran downstairs, the journal forgotten. The front door was still locked. The windows wouldn't break, even when I threw a chair at them. I collapsed on the couch, my breath ragged. The voices didn't stop. The house had me. The coffin had me. And the journal's words burned in my mind. The name cannot leave. The voices didn't let up. They wove through the house, calling my name in tones that shifted from soft to sharp. Elise. Elise. I curled up on the couch, hands over my ears, but it didn't help. The sound was inside me now, like a pulse. The clock still read 10:32. The light outside hadn't changed, gray, heavy, endless. The house wasn't just trapping me. It was erasing time. I couldn't stay still. Sitting felt like surrender. I stood, pacing the living room, avoiding the basement door. The journal's words haunted me. The name cannot leave. The coffin was the vessel, and my name tied me to it. But why me? I'd done nothing to this house. I paid rent, fixed leaks, lived quietly. Yet it wanted me. I needed the journal back. It was upstairs, by the wardrobe. Maybe it held more answers. How to break the binding, how to escape. I climbed the stairs, my legs heavy. The hallway was colder now, the air thick with dust. The wardrobe door was closed, but the scratching had stopped. I didn't trust it. I grabbed the journal from the floor, its leather cover warm, almost alive. Back downstairs, I spread the journal on the coffee table. My flashlight flickered, the beam weakening. I shook it, praying it wouldn't die. The pages crinkled as I turned them. Amos wrote of a presence in the house, something older than the foundation. It fed on the named, drawing strength from their fear. The coffin was its anchor, a prison for the presence, and for those it claimed. One passage chilled me. The vessel hungers. It carves the name when the chosen enters its domain. The ritual must be completed, or the presence grows restless. The ritual involved blood, a willing offering. I slammed the journal shut. No way. I wasn't offering anything. But the voices disagreed. Elise. Louder now, insistent. I noticed something new. The basement door was ajar. Just an inch, but I'd locked it. My heart sank. I approached, the journal clutched to my chest. The musty smell wafted out, stronger, like rot. I slammed the door shut, twisting the key. The lock clicked, but it felt flimsy, like the house could open it whenever it wanted. I sat at the kitchen table, the journal open again. The list of names was there, each with a date. Some had notes. Refused, taken, bound. The scratched-out name from 2024 had no note. I wondered who they were. A tenant? A stranger? The presence didn't care. It just needed a name. Mine now. The house shuddered. A low groan, like wood bending. The voices spiked, a cacophony of Elise. I stood, knocking over my chair. The basement door rattled, the knob twisting on its own. I backed away, the journal falling to the floor. The door stopped, but the air hummed, electric. Something was coming. I ran to the living room, grabbing the knife I'd left on the couch. The blade felt useless, but it was all I had. The voices followed, circling me. I scanned the room for anything else, a weapon, a tool, a way out. My eyes landed on the fireplace. I'd never used it, but the poker was there, rusted but heavy. I grabbed it, my hands slick with sweat. The basement door creaked open. Slow, deliberate. I froze, the poker raised. The whisper became a growl, my name stretched into something inhuman. Elise. Shadows moved in the doorway, thick and formless. They didn't cross the threshold, but they watched. I backed toward the fireplace, my breath shallow. The journal lay open on the floor. A page had flipped, revealing a drawing. The coffin detailed, with the same symbol from the cover, a circle with spokes. Below it, a warning. Destroy the vessel, and the presence scatters. But beware the cost. My eyes darted to the fireplace. Fire could destroy wood. But the coffin was downstairs, and the shadows blocked the way. I had no choice. I edged toward the kitchen, the poker in one hand, the knife in the other. The shadows pulsed, their edges fraying. They whispered my name, taunting. I reached the basement door. The stairs were dark, the light bulb dead. My flashlight was nearly gone, its beam a faint glow. I took a step down. The shadows followed, their presence heavy. The coffin waited below. I could feel it, pulling me. The voices screamed my name, a deafening roar. I gripped the poker tighter. Destroy the vessel. It was my only chance. But the cost, what was the cost? The house groaned again, and I knew. It wouldn't let me go easily. The basement stairs creaked under my weight. Each step felt like a descent into something final. The shadows clung to me, their whispers a storm of release. The poker in my hand was heavy, the knife in my other slick with sweat. My flashlight flickered, its beam barely cutting the dark. The coffin was down there, waiting. I could feel its pull, like a hook in my chest. The air grew colder, thicker. The musty smell was overwhelming now, mixed with something sharper, decay. I reached the bottom. The coffin loomed in the corner, its black wood swallowing the light. My name, Elise Harper, glowed faintly on the lid, like the letters were alive. The shadows swirled around it, formless but watchful. They didn't attack. They didn't need to. The coffin was enough. I stepped closer, the poker raised. The journal's warning echoed in my mind, destroy the vessel, and the presence scatters. But beware the cost. I didn't know what the cost was, but I couldn't stop now. The voices were deafening, my name a chant that shook the walls. The lid trembled, dust falling from its edges. Something inside wanted out. I swung the poker at the coffin. The wood splintered, a sharp crack echoing. The shadows hissed, their whispers turning to shrieks. I hit again, harder. A chunk of the lid broke away, revealing darkness inside. Not empty. Something moved, slow and deliberate, like a hand reaching up. I stumbled back, my flashlight dropping. The beam spun, lighting up the tally marks on the coffin's side. They glowed, pulsing like heartbeats. The shadows surged, wrapping around my legs. Cold, like ice, they pulled me toward the coffin. I screamed, swinging the poker wildly. It connected with the lid, shattering more wood. The thing inside stirred, a low growl rising. The voices screamed my name, a single word now, Elise. I dropped the knife, my hands shaking. I needed fire. The journal said fire could destroy it. I ran to the crates, searching for anything flammable. A can of paint thinner was tucked behind a box, its label peeling. I grabbed it, my hands fumbling with the cap. The shadows tightened, dragging me back. I poured the thinner over the coffin, the liquid glinting in the dim light. The thing inside thrashed, the lid buckling. I needed a match, a lighter, anything. My flashlight beam caught a box of matches on a shelf. I lunged for it, the shadows clawing at me. My fingers closed around the box. One match left. I struck it, the flame small but alive. The shadows recoiled, their shrieks piercing. I dropped the match onto the coffin. The thinner caught, flames licking up the wood. The thing inside roared, a sound that wasn't human. The fire spread fast. Too fast. The crates caught, then the boxes. Smoke filled the basement, choking me. I coughed, my eyes burning. The shadows dissolved, their whispers fading. The coffin burned, my name charring to ash. The presence was scattering, I could feel it, like a weight lifting. But the cost. What was the cost? The stairs were behind me, but the fire blocked the way. Heat seared my skin. I stumbled, my vision blurring. The house groaned, louder than ever, like it was collapsing. I crawled toward the stairs, the smoke thickening. The flames roared, consuming the basement. My hands found the first step. I pulled myself up, gasping. I reached the kitchen, slamming the door against the heat. The house shook, windows rattling. The voices were gone, but the silence was worse. I staggered to the front door. It opened this time, the knob turning easily. Cold air hit my face as I stumbled outside. The street was empty, the sky still gray. I collapsed on the lawn, coughing, my lungs raw. The house burned behind me. Flames licked the windows, the roof caving in. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. I stared at the fire, the coffin's image seared into my mind. It was gone. The presence was gone. But I felt hollow, like something had been taken. The journal's warning. The cost. Days later, I stood in a motel room, watching the news. The house was a ruin, the fire blamed on faulty wiring. No mention of a coffin. No mention of me. I was safe, but the mirror told a different story. My reflection didn't smile when I did. Its eyes followed me, cold and knowing. And at night, when I closed my eyes, I heard it. Faint but there. Elise. The presence had scattered. But it hadn't left me,